One disastrous fall at an elite restaurant threw Elena Carter straight into the lap of the city's most dangerous man, Adrian Voss. That first look changed everything. He was dangerous. He was ruthless. But he was also the only one who could protect her from a past that wouldn't let go. When love bloomed between shadows and power, Elena faced the ultimate question. Could she dare to love a man the whole world feared? Follow this story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. The thing about humiliation is that it doesn't announce itself. It just happens. Swift, merciless, and usually in front of way too many people. Elena Carter felt the heel snap before she heard it. 1 second, she was navigating through the crowded restaurant in her best and only pair of designer knockoffs, and the next she was airborne, arms flailing like some kind of deranged bird. Her purse went flying, her phone skittered across the marble floor, and she, all 5'6" of mortified desperation, landed directly in someone's lap. Not just someone. The entire dining room went silent. Elena's first coherent thought, face down in expensive wool and the faint scent of cedar and something darker, was that she'd just ruined her life. Her second thought was that whoever she'd just crashed into hadn't moved. At all. Most people would have yelped or shoved her off or at least said something. This man did none of those things. She scrambled upright, cheeks burning, already stammering apologies before she even looked at him. "Oh my, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, my heel just..." Then she saw his face. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, the kind of face that belonged on a magazine cover or a wanted poster. She couldn't decide which. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. But there was something ancient in the way he looked at her, calm, assessing, utterly unshaken by the fact that a strange woman had just crashed into him like a human wrecking ball. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, controlled, with an edge that suggested he didn't ask questions twice. No, I'm fine. I'm so sorry." Elena tried to stand, but her broken heel made her wobble. His hand shot out, steadying her elbow with a grip that was firm but not rough. "Stay still." It wasn't a suggestion. She froze. He stood then, and Elena's stomach dropped. He was tall, easily 6'2", and built like someone who didn't just go to the gym but possibly owned several. The suit he wore probably cost more than her rent. Everything about him screamed power, from the way he moved to the way every other person in the restaurant was suddenly very interested in their plates. "You're bleeding," he said, nodding toward her knee. Elena looked down. A thin line of blood was trickling down her shin from where she'd scraped it on the table leg. She hadn't even felt it. "Oh, yeah, it's nothing." "It's something." He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, an actual cloth handkerchief, like some kind of old-world gentleman, and crouched down in front of her. "You don't have to..." "I know." He pressed the fabric gently against her knee, and Elena felt her brain short-circuit. This man, this stranger who looked like he could buy and sell the entire restaurant without blinking, was kneeling in front of her, tending to a scraped knee like it mattered. "Thank you," she managed. He glanced up, and for a split second something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe, or curiosity. "What were you running from?" Elena's breath caught. "I wasn't..." "You were." He straightened, still holding her elbow. "People don't sprint through Marcellos and broken heels unless they're running from something." She should have lied, should have laughed it off, made some joke about being late for a meeting, but there was something about the way he looked at her, direct, unflinching, that made lying feel pointless. "Someone I don't want to see," she admitted quietly. His expression didn't change, but his grip on her elbow tightened just slightly. "Where?" "What? Where is he?" Elena blinked. "How did you..." "Call it a guess." His gaze shifted past her, scanning the room with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Which one?" She shouldn't tell him. This was insane. She didn't even know his name, but when she glanced over her shoulder and saw Marcus Hale watching from across the room with that same possessive, entitled smirk he'd worn for the last 6 months of their relationship, something in her snapped. "The blonde guy. Blue tie. Looks like he thinks he owns the place." The stranger's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Wait here." "Wait, what are you..." But he was already moving. Elena watched, heart hammering, as he crossed the restaurant in long, purposeful strides. Conversations died as he passed. A waiter actually stepped out of his way. By the time he reached Marcus's table, the entire room was holding its breath. She couldn't hear what he said, but she saw Marcus's face go from smug to pale in about 3 seconds flat. The stranger leaned down, one hand resting casually on the back of Marcus's chair, and said something that made her Ix's eyes go wide. Then he straightened, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked back to Elena like he'd just commented on the weather. "He won't bother you again," he said simply. Elena stared at him. "What did you say to him?" "Nothing important." He gestured toward the exit. "Can you walk?" Yes, I think so." "Good, let's go." "Go where?" "Anywhere but here." He offered his arm like they were at some kind of formal event and not standing in the wreckage of her dignity. "Unless you'd prefer to stay and let everyone stare." Elena glanced around. He was right. Every eye in the place was on them. She took his arm. They made it outside before she remembered to breathe. The cool night air hit her face, and she finally pulled away, suddenly aware of how insane this all was. "I don't even know your name," she said. "Adrian." He studied her with that same unreadable expression. "And you are?" "Elena? Elena Carter?" She tried to smooth down her dress, which had ridden up during the fall. "Look, thank you for whatever that was, but you really didn't have to." "I know." "So why did you?" Adrian tilted his head slightly, and for the first time she saw something like a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. "You fell into my lap, Elena Carter. That makes you my responsibility." "That's not how responsibility works." "It is for me." There was something in the way he said it that made her pulse quicken. Not fear exactly, but an awareness that she was standing in front of someone who operated by a completely different set of rules than the rest of the world. "I should go," she said, even though she didn't move. "You should let me take you home. I don't accept rides from strangers." "Smart." He pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. It was a car service app, already queued up with her destination, except she hadn't told him where she lived. "I'll send a car. You can track it the whole way, door to door. No detours." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine, that she could take care of herself, that she didn't need some mysterious, too handsome stranger swooping in like she was a damsel in distress. But her knee was throbbing, her heel was broken, and Marcus was probably still inside, watching. "Okay," she heard herself say. Adrian nodded once, finished typing, and pocketed his phone. 5 minutes. They stood in silence, and Elena became acutely aware of how close he was standing, not crowding her, but close enough that she could smell that cedar scent again, mixed with something else. Smoke, maybe? Or whiskey. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "What did you really say to Marcus?" Adrian's expression didn't change, but there was a glint in his eyes that might have been dangerous if it wasn't also a little bit thrilling. "I told him that if he came within 50 feet of you again, I'd make sure he regretted it." "That's kind of extreme." "Is it?" He stepped closer, just slightly, and Elena's breath hitched. "You were running. That means he scared you. People who scare women don't deserve second chances." "You don't even know me." "I know enough." The car pulled up before she could respond. A sleek black sedan, driver already holding the door open. Adrian gestured for her to get in, and she did, still clutching his blood-stained handkerchief. "Thank you," she said again, because it seemed important to say it twice. Adrian leaned down, one hand on the car door, and looked at her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. "If he bothers you again, call me." "I don't have your number." He reached into the car, took her phone from where it had landed on the seat, and typed something in. When he handed it back, there was a new contact saved. Just one word. Adrian. "Now you do." Before she could say anything else, he closed the door and stepped back. The car pulled away and Elena watched him disappear into the night, standing alone under the streetlight like some kind of avenging angel in a three-piece suit. She looked down at his number on her phone, then at the handkerchief in her lap, monogrammed with the initials A.V. Adrian Voss. She didn't know who he was, but something told her she was about to find out. Elena didn't sleep that night. She tried. She took a shower, scrubbed the dried blood off her knee, threw her ruined dress in the hamper, and climbed into bed with every intention of forgetting the entire disaster. But her mind wouldn't stop replaying the way Adrian had looked at her. The way he'd moved through that restaurant like he owned it. The way Marcus had gone white as a sheet at whatever Adrian had whispered to him. By 3 a.m., she gave up and Googled him. The results made her wish she hadn't. Adrian Voss, CEO of Voss Enterprises. Real estate, import/export. Philanthropist. The articles were careful, diplomatic, but the photos told a different story. Adrian at charity galas, always alone. Adrian shaking hands with politicians. Adrian in the background of crime scene photos from 5 years ago, listed as a witness but never a suspect. And then there were the rumors, the Reddit threads, the true crime podcasts, the whispered theories about what really happened to the Castellano family, and who really controlled the ports, and why the district attorney had suddenly dropped that racketeering case back in 2019. Elena closed her laptop and stared at the ceiling. She'd just accepted help from a man who might be one of the most dangerous people in the city. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of her. Did you make it home safely? Elena's heart did something complicated in her chest. She should delete it, block the number, pretend tonight never happened. Instead, she typed back, "Yes. Thank you again." 3 dots appeared immediately. Good. Get some rest, Elena. She stared at her name on the screen, the way he'd written it, like he'd been thinking about her, like she mattered. How do you know I'm not resting right now? The response came faster this time. Because you're the kind of person who Googles strangers at 3 in the morning. Elena's face went hot. She sat up in bed, looking around her apartment like he might somehow be watching, which was insane. Wasn't it? Lucky guess, she typed. I don't guess. She bit her lip, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was dangerous. Everything about this was dangerous, but she typed anyway. So what are you doing awake at 3 in the morning? Thinking about the woman who fell into my lap tonight. Elena's breath caught. She read the message 3 times, trying to decide if it was flirty or just honest. With Adrian, she was starting to realize it might be both. That was an accident, she wrote. Best accident of my week. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the fact that Adrian Voss, possible crime lord, definite enigma, was flirting with her over text at 3 in the morning like a normal person. I should let you sleep, he wrote before she could respond. But I'm having breakfast at the Harbor Cafe tomorrow at 9. If you happen to be in the neighborhood. Is that an invitation? It's an option. Elena stared at the message. Every rational part of her brain was screaming to say no, to delete his number, to forget this entire night and go back to her normal, safe, boring life, where she definitely didn't have breakfast with men who made district attorneys nervous. I'll think about it, she typed. Fair enough. Good night, Elena. Good night, Adrian. She set the phone down and tried to sleep, failed miserably. And at 8:47 the next morning, she found herself standing outside the Harbor Cafe, wearing her second-best dress and wondering what the hell she was doing. Adrian was already there. He sat at a corner table, reading a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, with a cup of black coffee steaming in front of him. He looked up the moment she walked in, like he'd been waiting, watching. You came, he said, standing. I was in the neighborhood, Elena lied. The corner of his mouth twitched. Of course you were. He pulled out a chair for her. Coffee? Please. He signaled the waiter with just a glance, and 2 seconds later there was a cup in front of her. No discussion of cream or sugar, just black like his. So, Elena said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. Do you do this often? Drink coffee? Invite women you just met to breakfast? No. Adrian folded his newspaper with precise movements. You're the first. I find that hard to believe. Believe what you want. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same intensity from last night. But it's true. Elena took a sip of coffee to buy herself time. It was good. Too good. The kind of coffee that probably cost more than her usual order. Why me? Why not you? That's not an answer. No, Adrian agreed. It's not. He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. You looked at me like I was a person, not a name, not a reputation, just someone who could help. Most people don't do that. Maybe most people know something I don't. They do. He didn't deny it, didn't make excuses. Does that scare you? Elena thought about it, really thought about it. It should, she said finally. But honestly, after dealing with Marcus for 6 months, you're not the scariest man I've met. Something dark flickered across Adrian's face. Tell me about him. There's nothing to tell. Elena. The way he said her name, quiet, firm, like a command and a request all at once, made her defenses crumble. We dated, she said, staring into her coffee. For 6 months. He was charming at first, successful, attentive. And then he got possessive, started showing up at my work, going through my phone, getting angry when I talked to other men. I broke up with him 3 weeks ago, and he won't accept it. Has he hurt you? Not physically. Elena swallowed. But he scares me. The way he looks at me, like I'm something he owns, like breaking up was just temporary. Adrian's jaw tightened. Last night at Marcello's. Was that a coincidence? No. He knew I'd be there. I was meeting a friend for dinner, and she mentioned it on social media. He just showed up. And you ran. I didn't want a scene. Elena looked up at him. But I got one anyway. You got protection. Adrian's voice was firm. There's a difference. From a stranger. Not anymore. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Dangerous. This was so dangerous. Adrian, I don't even know you. So get to know me. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly. Anything? Anything? Elena took a breath. Are you a criminal? Adrian didn't blink. By whose definition? The law's. Then yes. He said it simply, matter-of-factly, like he was admitting he preferred tea to coffee. I've broken laws. I'll probably break more, but I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it, and I've never taken from anyone who couldn't afford to lose. That's still wrong. I know. He held her gaze. I'm not asking you to approve. I'm asking you to understand the difference between what I am and who Marcus is. I don't take things that aren't mine. I don't scare women into submission, and I sure as hell don't show up uninvited when someone says no. Elena's pulse was racing. She should leave, should thank him for breakfast and walk away and never look back. But she didn't. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you deserve the truth. Adrian's expression softened just slightly. And because I want you to have all the information before you decide. Decide what? Whether you're going to let me take you to dinner tomorrow night. Elena laughed, actually laughed, at the sheer audacity of it. You just admitted you're a criminal and now you're asking me on a date? Yes. That's insane. Probably. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Is that a no? It should have been. Every logical, rational, self-preserving bone in her body was screaming at her to say no. To run. To get as far away from Adrian Voss as humanly possible. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, where? My place. I'll cook. You cook? I'm full of surprises, Elena. She believed him. Elena told herself it was just dinner. Just one meal with an interesting man who happened to be honest about his flaws. Nothing more. She told herself that right up until Adrian's driver picked her up the next evening in a car that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. The drive took them out of the city, up into the hills where the houses got bigger and the gates got taller. When they finally stopped, Elena looked out the window and felt her stomach drop. This is where he lives? She asked the driver. Yes, ma'am. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. Stone and glass and enough security cameras to make Fort Knox jealous. The front door opened before she even reached it, and there was Adrian, wearing dark jeans and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. He looked normal. Dangerously normal. You found it, he said, smiling. Kind of hard to miss. Elena stepped inside and her breath caught. The entryway alone was bigger than her living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Adrian, this is too much? I was going to say incredible. He looked pleased. Come on, kitchen's this way. She followed him through the house, taking in the details. Expensive art on the walls, but nothing showy. Comfortable furniture that actually looked lived in. Books everywhere, real books, not the kind people bought for decoration. The kitchen was massive, all gleaming counters and professional-grade appliances. Something was already simmering on the stove, filling the air with the scent of garlic and herbs. You weren't kidding about cooking, Elena said. I don't kid about food. Adrian handed her a glass of wine. Sit. Talk to me while I finish. She perched on one of the bar stools and watched him work. It was oddly mesmerizing, the way he moved around the kitchen with the same confidence he brought to everything else. Precise. Controlled. But there was something almost peaceful about it. Where did you learn to cook? She asked. My mother. Adrian glanced at her. She died when I was 16, but she taught me that a man who can't feed himself is useless. I'm sorry about your mother. It was a long time ago. He stirred the pot, tasted it, added more salt. What about you? Family? Dad died when I was 10. Mom remarried and moved to Florida. We don't talk much. Elena took a sip of wine. It's just me, mostly. That must be lonely. Sometimes. She watched him plate the food, pasta with some kind of cream sauce, grilled vegetables, fresh bread. It looked like something from a restaurant. But you get used to it. You shouldn't have to. Adrian set the plate in front of her and sat down across from her with his own. For a moment, they just ate in comfortable silence. The food was incredible, rich and flavorful without being heavy. This is amazing, Elena said after her third bite. Thank you. Seriously, you could open a restaurant. I own 3. Of course he did. They talked through dinner, easy conversation that flowed naturally despite the absurdity of the situation. Adrian asked about her work. She was a graphic designer for a small marketing firm and actually seemed interested in the answer. She asked about his businesses, and he told her about the properties he was developing, the charities he funded, the community centers he'd helped build. He didn't mention the other stuff, the rumors, the whispers. And Elena didn't ask. After dinner, he gave her a tour of the house, study lined with books, home gym that looked professionally equipped, a music room with a grand piano. Do you play? She asked. Not well. Adrian ran his fingers over the keys without pressing down. But I try. Play something. Elena said, please. He sat down and, after a moment's hesitation, began to play. It was simple, some kind of classical piece she didn't recognize, but his hands moved over the keys with surprising grace. When he finished, he looked up at her almost shyly. Told you I wasn't good? You're wrong. Elena sat down next to him on the bench. That was beautiful. Adrian's gaze dropped to her lips, just for a second before he looked away. It's getting late. I should get you home. I don't want to go yet. The words were out before she could stop them. Adrian turned to face her fully, and suddenly the space between them felt very small. Elena, he said quietly, if you stay... What? I'm not sure I'll want to let you leave. Her heart hammered in her chest. Maybe I don't want to leave. Adrian reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with a gentleness that made her ache. You should be afraid of me. I know, but you're not. No. Elena leaned into his touch. I'm not. He kissed her then, slow and careful, like he was afraid she might break. His hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheek, and Elena felt herself melt into him. This was insane, reckless, everything she shouldn't be doing. But when Adrian pulled back, resting his forehead against hers, all she could think was more. Stay, he whispered. Okay. They ended up on his couch in his living room, tangled together under a throw blanket, watching the city lights twinkle below. Adrian's arm was around her shoulders, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her arm. This is crazy, Elena said quietly. I know. We barely know each other. I know that too. So why does this feel so right? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I've spent my whole life being careful, calculated, Never letting anyone get close, because close meant vulnerable, and vulnerable meant dead. He tightened his arm around her. But then you crashed into my lap, and suddenly all that careful planning didn't matter anymore. Elena tilted her head to look up at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what this is, but I want to find out. His dark eyes searched hers. If you'll let me. She should say no, should protect herself, should remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But when she looked at Adrian, really looked at him, she didn't see a criminal or a kingpin or whatever else the rumors said. She saw a man who cooked his mother's recipes, who played piano badly and owned it, who treated her like she was precious. Okay, she heard herself say. Let's find out. Adrian smiled and pulled her closer, and Elena let herself believe just for tonight that maybe falling into the wrong place had led her exactly where she belonged. Elena woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee brewing somewhere nearby. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then she saw Adrian's living room, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below, the throw blanket tucked carefully around her shoulders, and everything came rushing back. She'd fallen asleep on his couch, in his arms. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. 7 missed calls from her best friend Jenna, and a string of increasingly panicked texts. Where are you? Elena, seriously, answer me. If you don't text me back in 10 minutes, I'm calling the police. Okay, I'm calling them. Elena quickly typed back, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'll explain later. The response came immediately. You better, and it better be good. Coffee? She looked up to find Adrian standing in the doorway holding 2 mugs. He changed into fresh clothes, dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look unfairly attractive for someone who'd probably slept in a chair all night. You didn't have to let me take the whole couch, Elena said, accepting the mug. You needed the sleep. He sat down in the armchair across from her, close but not crowding. I hope you don't mind. I had some clothes brought over for you. They're in the guest room if you want to shower. Elena blinked. You had clothes brought over? I have people who handle things. That's incredibly presumptuous. Would you rather wear yesterday's dress home? She hated that he had a point. What size did you guess? I didn't guess. I asked my assistant. She's good at that sort of thing. Your assistant keeps women's clothing on standby? Adrian's mouth twitched. My assistant is a woman who occasionally needs emergency outfit changes. She keeps a selection at the office. He paused. This isn't something I do, Elena. Bring women home, have breakfast the next morning, any of it. Then why me? I'm still figuring that out. The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. She took a sip of coffee, perfect, just like yesterday, and tried to process the surreal reality of her situation. She was having morning coffee with Adrian Voss, in his house. After falling asleep in his arms, her mother would have a heart attack. I should probably go, she said, even though she didn't want to. I have work. Call in sick. Adrian, spend the day with me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Let me show you the city, the parts tourists don't see. Every reasonable part of her brain was screaming no. She had deadlines, responsibilities, a life that didn't include playing hooky with dangerously attractive men of questionable legality. Okay, she heard herself say. Adrian smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Go shower. I'll make breakfast. The guest room was bigger than her entire apartment. The bathroom had one of those rainfall shower heads and enough towels to supply a hotel. And hanging in the closet was a selection of clothes, jeans, sweaters, a leather jacket, all in her exact size. It should have been creepy. Instead, it felt strangely thoughtful. Elena showered quickly, dressed in dark jeans and a soft gray sweater that probably cost more than her rent, and found Adrian in the kitchen flipping pancakes like he did this every day. You really weren't kidding about the cooking thing, she said. My mother used to say that food is how you show people they matter. He plated the pancakes with practiced efficiency. Sit, eat. They ate breakfast at the kitchen island, and Adrian told her about the city. The hidden restaurants in Chinatown, the bookstore that stayed open until 3 a.m., the rooftop garden that nobody knew about. He talked about places like he'd memorized them, like every street held a story. How long have you lived here? Elena asked. My whole life, born and raised. Adrian refilled her coffee. My father ran these streets before me, and his father before him. So it's a family business. You could say that. His expression darkened slightly. Though I like to think I've improved the model. How so? My father believed in fear, in making people too terrified to cross him. Adrian's jaw tightened. I prefer loyalty. People work harder when they're invested, not intimidated. But you still intimidate people. When necessary. He looked at her directly. I'm not going to pretend I'm a good man, Elena. I've done things that would make you run if you knew, but I have lines I don't cross. And I take care of the people who matter to me. Is that what I am? The question came out softer than she intended. Someone who matters? Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. You're becoming someone who matters. Fast. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. That scares me. Good. It should. But he didn't let go of her hand. Being scared means you're paying attention. After breakfast, Adrian kept his promise. They spent the day exploring the city. Not the tourist version, but the real one. He took her to a hole-in-the-wall dim sum place where the owner greeted him like family, showed her a street art installation hidden in an alley that took her breath away, brought her to a jazz club that didn't open until after dark, but let them in anyway because the owner owed Adrian a favor. You know everyone, Elena observed as they left the club. I know the right people. Adrian held the car door open for her. There's a difference. Which am I? The right people or everyone? He paused, one hand on the doorframe, and looked at her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. You're the exception. They drove up to the hills as the sun started setting, and Adrian parked at a lookout point Elena had never known existed. The city spread below them like a sea of lights, beautiful and chaotic and alive. I come here when I need to think, Adrian said, leaning against the hood of the car. Reminds me why I do what I do. Elena joined him, their shoulders almost touching. Why do you do it? Because someone has to. He was quiet for a moment. This city, it's not pretty underneath. There are people who would burn it down for profit if nobody stopped them. My father understood that. He just went about it the wrong way. And you think your way is better? I think my way keeps people alive. Adrian turned to look at her. The ports? I control them, which means I control what comes in and what goes out. Drugs, weapons, trafficked people, they don't move through my territory. Other things? Gray areas? Sure, but never that. You're drawing lines in sand. Maybe, but they're my lines, and I enforce them. Elena studied his profile, the sharp jaw, the tired eyes, the weight he carried like armor. Do you ever wish you could just walk away? Every day. The admission seemed to surprise even him. But I can't. Too many people depend on me, and the alternative, someone like Castellano taking over. That would be worse. Castellano? Used to run the south side, until he didn't. Adrian's expression went cold. He thought human trafficking was just another revenue stream. I disagreed. Elena's stomach turned. What happened to him? He retired, permanently. The weight of what he wasn't saying hung between them. Elena knew she should be horrified, should demand he take her home and never contact her again. But all she could think about was the girls who weren't being trafficked because Adrian had stopped it. You're not what I expected, she said finally. What did you expect? A monster, maybe. Or at least someone who didn't care. She turned to face him fully. But you do care. In your own twisted way. Is that a compliment? I'm not sure yet. Adrian laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was startling in its genuineness. Fair enough. They stayed on that hill until the city lights blurred together and Elena's phone buzzed with another text from Jenna demanding details. Adrian drove her home as the clock struck midnight, and when they pulled up outside her building, neither of them moved to get out. Thank you for today, Elena said. I can't remember the last time I just enjoyed myself. We should do it again. Adrian, I know, I'm dangerous. You should stay away. You've told yourself that 100 times today. He shifted to face her, and even in the dim light, his eyes were intense. But you're still here. I'm an idiot. You're brave. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with a gentleness that made her ache. Most people see what they expect to see. You look deeper. Maybe I just have terrible judgment. Maybe. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Or maybe you see something worth knowing. Elena's breath caught. She should go inside, should put distance between herself and whatever this was becoming. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. It was different from the night before, more urgent, more real. Adrian's hand slid into her hair, and Elena felt herself dissolve into him, into the heat and the want and the dangerous thrill of choosing something she knew she shouldn't. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "You're going to wreck me," he whispered. "Good," Elena whispered back. She got out of the car before she could change her mind, and she didn't look back until she reached her door. Adrian was still there, waiting to make sure she got inside safely. She waved, and he drove away, and Elena leaned against her door trying to remember how to breathe normally. Her phone buzzed. Dinner tomorrow? She should say no. Should create boundaries. Should protect herself. Where? She typed back. Anywhere you want. Surprise me. Dangerous words, Elena Carter. You're one to talk. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Sleep well, dream of me. Elena smiled despite herself, presumptuous, accurate. She fell asleep that night thinking about dark eyes and gentle hands, and the way Adrian had looked at her like she was something precious, like she mattered. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Elena was at her desk, trying to focus on a logo redesign, when her coworker Melissa appeared at her cubicle with wide eyes and a barely contained grin. "Okay, spill," Melissa said, perching on the desk. "Where were you yesterday?" "I was sick." "You're a terrible liar. Also, Jenna texted me asking if I'd heard from you, so I know you weren't dying in your apartment." Melissa leaned closer. "Was it a guy?" Elena's face went hot. "Maybe. Oh my God, it was totally a guy. Who is he? How did you meet? Is he hot?" "It's complicated." "The hot ones always are." Melissa waggled her eyebrows. "Come on, give me something." "His name is Adrian. I met him at a restaurant, and yes, he's attractive." "Attractive like Chris Hemsworth attractive, or attractive like that guy from accounting who wears too much cologne?" "Neither. He's..." Elena struggled to find words. "He's intense, and honest, and kind of terrifying in a way that shouldn't be appealing but is." "Ooh, mysterious. I like it." Melissa's phone buzzed and she glanced at it. Crap, meeting in 5. But we're continuing this conversation at lunch. Elena was saved from further interrogation by her own phone buzzing with a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Elena Carter?" The voice was male, unfamiliar, with an edge that made her spine straighten. "Who is this?" "A friend. I wanted to give you some advice." Her stomach dropped. "I'm hanging up. Adrian Voss is a dangerous man. Whatever he's told you, whatever you think you know about him, it's not the truth. He's using you. I don't know who you are, but stay away from him before you get hurt." The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, heart hammering. She should have felt threatened, should have been scared. Instead, she was angry. She called Adrian. He picked up on the first ring. "Elena, everything okay?" "I just got a weird phone call, someone warning me away from you." A pause. Then, "What did they say?" "That you're dangerous, that you're using me, that I should stay away." "They're right about the first part." His voice was tight. "I am dangerous. But I'm not using you, Elena. And if someone's calling to threaten you, that means they're trying to get to me through you." "Who would do that?" "Several people. I'll find out which one." She heard him moving, heard a door close. "Where are you?" "At work. Adrian, I'm fine. It was just a phone call." "It's never just a phone call." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sending someone to watch your building. You won't see them, but they'll be there." "That's really not necessary." "It is for me. Please, Elena, just let me make sure you're safe." The rawness in his voice made her chest tighten. "Okay." "Thank you," he exhaled. "I'll pick you up at 7. And Elena?" "Yeah?" "If anyone approaches you, anyone at all, you call me immediately. Understand?" "I understand." But she didn't. Not really. Not until she left work that evening and found Marcus waiting by her car. He looked different than he had at the restaurant. Harder. More desperate. His tie was loose, his jacket wrinkled, and there was something wild in his eyes that made Elena's blood run cold. "We need to talk," he said. Elena reached for her phone. "Stay away from me, Marcus. I'm trying to save your life." He stepped closer, and she backed up against her car. "Do you have any idea who you're dating? What Adrian Voss really is?" "I know enough." "You don't know anything." Marcus's voice rose. "He's a killer, Elena, a criminal. He runs this city like his personal kingdom, and anyone who crosses him ends up dead or disappeared. And yet here you are, still alive, still talking. Because I'm not important enough to kill, but you are." Marcus grabbed her arm and Elena flinched. "He's using you to get to me, to my family. My father does business with the Kozlov organization, and Adrian's been trying to muscle in for years. Let go of me. Elena, please, just listen." A hand clamped down on Marcus's shoulder, and he was suddenly yanked backward with enough force to make him stumble. A man Elena had never seen before, tall, built like a linebacker, with cold eyes and a scar across his jaw, stepped between them. "The lady asked you to leave," the man said quietly. Marcus went pale. "I was just talking to her." "Now you're done." The man didn't raise his voice, didn't have to. Everything about him screamed danger. "Walk away." "This isn't over," Marcus said to Elena, but he was already backing up. "When you figure out what he really is, don't say I didn't warn you." He left, practically running to his car. Elena watched him go, then turned to her unexpected protector. "You must be Adrian's person," she said. The corner of the man's mouth twitched. "Victor. And yeah, something like that." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "She's clear. Yeah, I'll stay with her until he arrives." "You really don't have to—" "Boss's orders." Victor pocketed his phone. "And between you and me, Adrian doesn't give orders about people he doesn't care about, so whatever's going on between you two, it matters to him." Elena didn't know what to say to that. Adrian arrived 10 minutes later in a different car, something low and fast and probably illegal. He was out and pulling Elena into his arms before Victor had finished giving his report. "Are you hurt?" Adrian's hands were everywhere, checking her face, her arms, her shoulders. "I'm fine. Marcus just wanted to talk." "He grabbed you." It wasn't a question. Victor must have told him. "Barely. For like 2 seconds." Elena put her hands on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. "Adrian, I'm okay. Really." He looked at Victor. "Where is he now?" "Tracked him to a bar on 5th. Want me to—" "No." Adrian's jaw worked. "Not yet. But I want eyes on him. 24/7. If he so much as looks in her direction again, I want to know about it." "You got it." Victor left, and Adrian pulled Elena close again, his face buried in her hair. She felt him trembling, actually trembling, and realized he'd been terrified. "Hey," she said softly, pulling back to look at him. "I'm okay. You shouldn't have to deal with this. With him. With any of it." Adrian's eyes were dark, haunted. "Maybe everyone's right. Maybe you should stay away from me." "Is that what you want?" "No." The word came out harsh, desperate. "But it's safer for you." Elena reached up and cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "I don't want safe. I want you." "Elena, I'm not naive, Adrian. I know what you are, what you do, and I'm choosing this anyway." She stood on her toes and kissed him, soft and sure. "So stop trying to protect me from yourself." Adrian made a sound low in his throat and kissed her back, hard and consuming, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were blazing. "Come home with me," he said. "I need to pack." "I have everything you need. Please, Elena, I can't think straight knowing you're out there alone." She should have said no, should have insisted on her independence, her space, her life outside of whatever this was becoming. But the truth was, she didn't want to be alone either. "Okay," she whispered. Adrian's house felt different this time, less like a museum and more like a refuge. He made dinner while Elena sat at the kitchen island, watching him work with the same focused intensity he brought to everything else. Marcus mentioned the Kozlov organization, she said carefully. What was he talking about? Adrian's knife paused mid-chop. The Kozlovs run weapons through the northern ports. They've been trying to expand south for years. And you won't let them. I won't let anyone traffic weapons into schools and residential areas. The Kozlovs don't care where their guns end up as long as they get paid. He resumed cutting vegetables with sharp, precise movements. Marcus's father does their accounting, launders their money through his real estate firm. So this is about business. It's about Marcus being a spoiled brat who thinks he can intimidate you into leaving me so his family doesn't lose their cash cow. Adrian looked at her. He's wrong on multiple counts. Such as? I don't need you to hurt the Kozlovs. I can do that myself. And you're not going anywhere. The certainty in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe. They ate dinner on the balcony overlooking the city, and Adrian told her about his day, meetings with construction foremen, a lunch with the mayor that was probably less official than it should have been, a problem at one of his warehouses that required his personal attention. What kind of problem? Elena asked. The kind where someone thought they could skim product and I wouldn't notice. Adrian's expression went cold. They were wrong. What did you do to them? Fired them. Blacklisted them from working anywhere in the city. He paused. My father would have killed them. I just made sure they'll never steal from anyone again. That's still harsh. It's merciful. Adrian met her eyes. In my world, mercy is letting someone walk away. Most people don't get that option. Elena processed that in silence. After dinner, they ended up in his study, Adrian working through paperwork while Elena curled up in the leather armchair with a book from his shelf. It was strangely domestic, this quiet companionship, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. Can I ask you something? Elena said eventually. Always. Do you ever regret it, the life you chose? Adrian set down his pen. I didn't choose it. It chose me. My father died when I was 22, and suddenly I was responsible for an empire I barely understood. I could have walked away. Should have, probably. But I saw what would happen if I did. The vultures circling, the violence, the chaos. So I stayed. And now? Now it's who I am. For better or worse. He looked at her. Does that scare you? Everything about you scares me, Elena admitted. But I'm still here. Why? She thought about it, really thought about it. Because you're honest. You don't pretend to be something you're not. And because when you look at me, I feel like I matter. Like I'm not just invisible. Adrian stood and crossed to her, kneeling in front of the chair so they were eye level. You're not invisible, Elena. You're the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing I think about at night. You're the reason I drove 90 miles an hour when Victor called. You're becoming the most important thing in my life, and that terrifies me more than anything I've ever done. Elena's breath caught. Adrian, I'm falling for you, fast and hard and probably stupidly. He took her hand. And I need you to know that before this goes any further, because once you're mine, I don't share, I don't let go, and I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. That's intense. I'm an intense person. I've noticed. Elena leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sweet. I'm falling too, just so you know. Adrian's smile was brilliant and rare and entirely hers. He pulled her out of the chair and into his lap, and they stayed like that for a long time, kissing and touching and learning the shape of each other. When he finally carried her to his bedroom, Elena went willingly, ready to fall even further into something that should have been wrong, but felt impossibly right. Later, wrapped in his sheets with his arm around her waist, Elena stared at the ceiling and tried to process how much her life had changed in less than a week. A week ago, she'd been running from Marcus in broken heels. Now she was lying in Adrian Voss's bed, falling in love with a man the city feared. What are you thinking? Adrian murmured against her shoulder. That I've lost my mind. Probably. You're supposed to disagree. I don't lie to you, that's the deal. He pressed a kiss to her bare shoulder. But if it helps, I've lost mine too. Elena turned in his arms so she could see his face. What happens now? Now we see where this goes. Adrian tucked her hair back. Together. Even though it's dangerous? Especially because it's dangerous. His eyes were serious. I won't lie to you, Elena. Being with me puts a target on your back. People will try to use you to get to me. Some of them will be cruel about it, and I can't promise I can protect you from everything. But I can promise I'll die trying. He pulled her closer. And I can promise that as long as you're with me, you'll never be invisible again. Elena kissed him, slow and deep, and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, falling into the wrong place had led her exactly where she belonged. 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and dangerous normalcy. Elena split her time between her apartment and Adrian's house, though she found herself gravitating toward his place more and more. It wasn't just the luxury or the safety. It was him. The way he'd wake her up with coffee and kiss her forehead before heading to whatever meeting controlled the city's underworld that day. The way he'd text her random observations throughout the day like he couldn't stop thinking about her. The way he'd come home wound tight and tense, only to relax the moment she touched him. But the harder she fell, the more she noticed the cracks. Adrian had nightmares. He'd wake up gasping, reaching for a gun he kept in the nightstand, his eyes wild until he recognized her. He never talked about them, just pulled her close and held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. And there were the phone calls, the ones he'd taken in another room, coming back with his jaw tight and his hands clenched. The meetings that ran late, the days when Victor would show up looking grim and Adrian would leave without explanation. Elena told herself she understood, that this was the life she'd chosen. But understanding didn't make it easier. She was at Adrian's house, working on a client presentation on her laptop, when her phone rang. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. Hey, Elena answered, tucking the phone between her ear and shoulder. What's up? What's up? What's up? Jenna's voice was shrill. You've been dodging me for 3 weeks. That's what's up. We were supposed to have brunch last Sunday, and the Sunday before that. Are you alive? Have you been kidnapped? I'm sorry. Things have been crazy. Things named Adrian? Elena winced. Maybe. Elena Marie Carter, I swear to everything holy, if you don't tell me what's going on right now, I'm showing up at your apartment with wine and refusing to leave until you spill. I'm not at my apartment. A pause. Where are you? Adrian's place. You're living with him? Jenna's voice jumped an octave. You've known him for 3 weeks and you're already living with him? I'm not living with him. I'm just staying here sometimes. How many nights this week? Elena counted in her head. 6. That's living with him. Jenna exhaled loudly. Okay, I need details. All of them. Starting with who the hell this guy is, because I did some digging. You what? I Googled him. Don't act surprised. And Elena, the stuff that came up, it's not good. There are rumors about him being involved in organized crime, about people who crossed him ending up... I know what he is, Elena interrupted. He's been honest with me about everything. And you're okay with it? With dating someone who might be... He's not what people think. Or maybe he is, but he's also more than that. Elena closed her laptop, suddenly defensive. He's kind to me, Jenna. He listens when I talk. He makes me feel like I matter. So did Marcus at first. The comparison hit like a slap. Adrian is nothing like Marcus. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying you have a pattern of picking men who... Who what? Take care of me? Make me feel safe? Elena's voice rose. Maybe I'm tired of being alone. Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe and ending up with guys who treat me like an accessory. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Too late. I'm already in too deep. Elena softened her tone. Look, I know this seems crazy. It is crazy. But Adrian makes me happy, Jenna. For the first time in forever, I wake up excited about the day instead of just going through the motions. Jenna was quiet for a long moment. He better treat you right. Or I don't care how scary he is. I'll hunt him down myself. Elena smiled despite everything. I love you too. Brunch. This Sunday. No excuses. I need to meet this guy and decide if he's worthy. That's really not this Sunday, Elena, or I'm telling your mother you're dating a mob boss. That's blackmail. I learned from the best. Jenna's voice turned serious. Just be careful, okay? I've got a bad feeling about this. They hung up, and Elena stared at her phone. She wanted to dismiss Jenna's concerns as overprotective paranoia, but the truth was she had a bad feeling too. Not about Adrian, about everything else. The way Marcus kept showing up in places he shouldn't be. The calls Adrian wouldn't let her hear. The tension that seemed to be building like a storm on the horizon. The front door opened and Adrian walked in looking exhausted. His tie was loose, his jacket slung over one shoulder, and there was a cut on his knuckles that hadn't been there this morning. What happened? Elena crossed to him immediately, taking his hand. Business meeting. He tried to pull away, but she held firm. Business meetings don't usually involve bleeding. Mine do sometimes. Adrian sighed when she just stared at him. One of the Kozlov associates thought he could negotiate better terms with his fists. He was wrong. Elena pulled him toward the kitchen and ran his hand under cold water. The cut wasn't deep, but it was angry and red. You need to stop solving problems with violence. It's efficient. It's going to get you killed. Probably. He watched her clean the cut with surprising gentleness for someone who just punched another human being. But not today. Adrian, I'm fine, Elena. He cupped her face with his uninjured hand. I promise. This is just part of it. Part of what I do. I hate that. I know. He kissed her forehead. But I love that you care. They stood there for a moment, water still running, his hand in hers. Elena wanted to tell him about Jenna's call, about her worries, about the feeling that something was coming that would test everything they'd built. But before she could find the words, Adrian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression went cold. I need to take this. Adrian, please. There was something in his voice, urgency mixed with fear, that made her step back. He answered the phone in rapid-fire Russian, moving toward his study. Elena caught fragments, names she didn't recognize, numbers that sounded like coordinates. When he came back 5 minutes later, he looked like he'd aged a decade. I have to go, he said. Now? It's almost midnight. There's a situation at the docks. If I don't handle it personally, people will die. He was already grabbing his jacket, checking the gun at his hip. Victor's outside. He'll stay with you until I get back. I don't need a babysitter. Elena, please. Not tonight. Adrian crossed to her and kissed her hard, desperate. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone but me. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call Victor immediately. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He pressed another kiss to her forehead. I'll be back before sunrise, I promise. Then he was gone, and Elena was left standing in the kitchen with wet hands and a growing sense of dread. She tried to sleep, failed miserably. By 2 a.m., she was pacing the living room, jumping at every sound. At 3, she gave up and made coffee. At 4, she heard gunshots in the distance, sharp pops that echoed across the hills, and nearly called the police before remembering that Adrian probably was the reason the police wouldn't come. At 5:30, the front door opened. Elena spun around, heart in her throat, and saw Adrian. He was covered in blood, his shirt, his hands, even his face. For a terrible moment, she thought he'd been shot. Then she realized none of it was his. Oh my God! She rushed to him. Adrian, what? I'm okay. His voice was flat, emotionless. It's not my blood. Whose blood is it? He didn't answer, just walked past her toward the stairs, leaving a trail of red footprints on the marble floor. Elena followed, watching as he went straight to the bathroom and turned on the shower without bothering to undress first. She should have left him alone, should have given him space. Instead, she stepped into the bathroom and closed the door behind her. Talk to me, she said quietly. Adrian stood under the spray fully clothed, watching the water turn pink as it swirled down the drain. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. No, Elena, you really don't. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were haunted. Because if I tell you, you'll see exactly what I am, and you'll leave. Try me. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. The Kozlovs made a move tonight. Tried to take over one of my warehouses. They brought 20 men. I brought 10. We won. He stripped off his ruined shirt with shaking hands. 3 of theirs are dead, 2 of mine are in the hospital. And I killed a man with my bare hands because he tried to shoot Victor. Elena's stomach turned, but she didn't move. Did Victor survive? Yeah, he's fine. Probably at home right now pretending he doesn't have a concussion. Adrian stepped out of the shower, water dripping everywhere. This is my life, Elena. Blood and violence and making impossible choices. I told you I wasn't a good man. I meant it. I know. Then why are you still standing there? His voice cracked. Why aren't you running? Elena crossed to him and took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Because I love you, you idiot. Adrian froze. What? I love you. The words came easier the second time. I love you even though you're dangerous and violent and probably going to give me a heart attack before I'm 40. I love you because you're honest about who you are, because you protect the people who matter to you, because when you look at me, I feel seen. She kissed him softly. And because you came home. You promised you would, and you did. Adrian made a sound between a laugh and a sob and pulled her against him, soaking her clothes, but she didn't care. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. They stood there, dripping and exhausted and clinging to each other like the world was ending. Eventually, Adrian finished his shower, properly this time, and they climbed into bed as dawn broke over the city. Elena wrapped herself around him, feeling the tremors that still ran through his body. I'm sorry you have to see this side of me, he murmured. I'm not. Elena pressed a kiss to his shoulder. I want all of you, not just the polished parts. Even the monster? Especially the monster. She tightened her hold on him. Because he's mine. Adrian turned in her arms and kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. They made love slowly, desperately, both of them trying to prove they were alive and together and unbroken. Afterward, Elena watched him fall asleep, his face finally peaceful, and wondered how she'd ever thought she could live without this man. The next 2 weeks were tense. Adrian doubled her security, which meant Victor or one of his associates was always nearby. Marcus disappeared. Adrian wouldn't tell her what happened, just said he was no longer a problem. And the Kozlov situation escalated into a full-blown war that played out in shipping manifests and backroom negotiations instead of gunfire. Elena tried to maintain normalcy, went to work, met Jenna for brunch, where her best friend took one look at Adrian and declared him stupidly hot but definitely dangerous, before grilling him about his intentions for 20 minutes. Adrian handled it with surprising grace, answering Jenna's questions honestly and even making her laugh. I don't know whether to like him or be terrified, Jenna said later, after Adrian had left to take a call. Why not both? Elena suggested. He looks at you like you're the only person in the room. That's either really romantic or really possessive. Again, why not both? Jenna shook her head. You're in deep, aren't you? So deep I can't see the surface anymore. Just promise me you'll be careful. Men like that, they burn bright, but they also burn out. Elena wanted to argue, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna was right. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Elena was leaving work when a black SUV pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, and a woman she'd never seen before smiled at her. She was beautiful, in a sharp, dangerous way, high cheekbones, red lips, eyes like chips of ice. Elena Carter, the woman said. Who's asking? Someone who wants to make you an offer. The woman gestured to the empty seat beside her. Get in. 5 minutes of your time, and then you never have to see me again. I'm not getting in a car with a stranger. Smart girl. Adrian's taught you well. The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. My name is Katya Kozlov. I think you can guess why I'm here. Elena's blood went cold. I have nothing to say to you. But I have something to say to you. Something that might save your life. Katya leaned closer to the window. Adrian Voss is using you as a shield. Every day you're with him, you're a target for his enemies, and there are a lot of us. Thanks for the warning. I'm aware. Are you aware that he killed my brother 2 weeks ago? Stabbed him 17 times in a warehouse while his men held me back and made me watch. Katya's voice was eerily calm. Adrian told you it was self-defense, I'm sure, that my brother shot first, but that's not the whole truth. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Katya pulled out her phone and showed Elena a photo. It was grainy, clearly from a security camera, but the image was clear enough. Adrian, covered in blood, standing over a body, and in the background, a woman screaming, Katya. Elena's stomach turned. He said 3 people died. 3 of my men. My brother makes 4, but Adrian doesn't count family in his body count. Katya pocketed her phone. He's a monster, Elena. A very charming, very protective monster, but a monster nonetheless. And the longer you stay with him, the more danger you're in. If you're trying to scare me, I'm trying to save you, because I know what it's like to love a man in this world. I watched my husband die because he couldn't walk away from the violence. Katya's mask slipped for just a moment, showing raw grief underneath. Leave him now, while you still can, before you end up like me, or worse, like the women who've gotten too close to Adrian and disappeared. Adrian would never, wouldn't he? Katya started rolling up her window. Ask him about Sofia Marchetti. If he's as honest as you think, he'll tell you the truth. The SUV drove away, and Elena stood there shaking. She should call Adrian, should tell him about the encounter immediately. But Katya's words kept echoing in her head. Ask him about Sofia Marchetti. Elena pulled out her phone and Googled the name. The results made her blood run cold. Sofia Marchetti, age 24, reported missing 3 years ago. Last seen at a fundraiser with Adrian Voss. Case went cold after 6 months. No body ever found. There had to be an explanation. Adrian couldn't. Her phone rang. Adrian. Hey, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Where are you? He sounded tense. Just left work. Why? Victor said a black SUV stopped next to you. Who was in it? Elena's heart hammered. Of course Victor had seen. A woman. She just asked for directions. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she needed time to think, needed to process what Katya had told her before confronting Adrian about it. Elena. His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet. Don't lie to me. Who was it? She closed her eyes. Katya Kozlov. Adrian swore in Russian. What did she say to you? That you killed her brother. That you're dangerous. That I should leave you before I end up like... She couldn't say the name. Like who? When she didn't answer, Adrian's voice went cold. Like Sofia Marchetti. So you know who she is? Yes? What happened to her? Come home. I'll tell you everything, but not over the phone. Adrian, please, Elena, trust me enough to hear me out in person. His voice cracked slightly. Please. She should have said no, should have demanded answers right then. But something in his tone, the raw desperation, made her cave. I'm coming. The drive to Adrian's house felt like it took hours. Victor met her at the door looking grim. He didn't say anything, just gestured for her to go inside. Adrian was in his study, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when she entered. Sofia Marchetti was my girlfriend, he said quietly. 3 years ago, before I really understood what my life would become. Elena's heart sank. What happened to her? She was kind, smart, worked at an art gallery downtown. We dated for 6 months, and I thought... He took a drink. I thought maybe I could have something normal, something separate from all this. Adrian? She found out what I really did. Not the sanitized version, the real version, and she threatened to go to the FBI. He finally turned to look at Elena, and his eyes were devastated. I tried to reason with her, tried to explain that going to the authorities would get us both killed. But she was terrified of me, said I was a monster, said she'd rather die than be complicit. So you killed her. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. No. Adrian set down his glass with shaking hands. I put her on a plane to Paris with a new identity and enough money to start over. She's alive, Elena. Living in the French countryside under the name Marie Laurent. I get updates twice a year to make sure she's safe. Then why does everyone think she's dead? Because if people knew she was alive, they'd hunt her down to get to me. The missing person case going cold was intentional. I paid off cops, buried evidence, made sure no one would ever find her. He crossed to Elena, stopping just out of reach. I let the woman I loved go because keeping her near me would have killed her, and I've regretted it every day since. Elena tried to process this. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid you'd see it as proof that I can't keep the people I love safe, that being with me means running for the rest of your life. Adrian's voice broke. And I couldn't stand the thought of losing you, too. So you lied. I omitted. There's a difference. Is there? Elena's anger flared. You keep telling me you're honest, Adrian, but you've been hiding this from me for weeks. Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Like what? Like someone who deserves to know the truth about the man she's sleeping with? Elena threw up her hands. Katya showed me a photo of you covered in her brother's blood. She said you stabbed him 17 times while she watched. Was she lying about that too? Adrian's jaw tightened. No. So you did kill him. He was going to kill Victor. I made a choice. 17 times, Adrian. That's not self-defense. That's... Elena couldn't finish the sentence. That's what I am. Adrian's voice turned cold. I told you from the beginning, I'm not a good man. I do terrible things to protect the people I love. And I won't apologize for keeping Victor alive. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to stop lying to me. I didn't lie. You hid the truth. Same thing. Elena grabbed her purse. I need some space. Elena, please, don't. She held up a hand. I love you, Adrian, but I can't do this if you're going to keep secrets from me. If we're going to make this work, I need complete honesty. All of it. Even the parts that make you look like a monster. You'll leave. Maybe. But at least I'll be making an informed choice. She headed for the door, then stopped. For what it's worth. I understand why you did what you did, both with Sophia and with Katya's brother, but I can't be with someone who doesn't trust me enough to tell me the whole truth. She left before he could respond, and she didn't look back. Victor drove her to her apartment in silence. When they arrived, he finally spoke. He's been terrified of losing you since the day you met, Victor said. Everything he does, the secrets, the protection, all of it, it's because he's convinced you're going to figure out he's not worth loving and leave. Then he should have more faith in me. Should, yes. But Adrian spent his whole life being abandoned by the people who were supposed to stay. His mother died. His father was a bastard who cared more about power than his own son. Sophia left. Everyone leaves. Victor looked at her directly. You're the first person who stayed through the blood and the violence. Can you blame him for being scared? Elena wanted to argue, but Victor had a point. She spent that night alone in her apartment thinking about everything she'd learned. About Sophia, alive and safe in France. About Katya's brother, dead on a warehouse floor. About Adrian, terrified of losing her but too scared to be completely honest. By morning, she'd made her decision. She showed up at Adrian's house at dawn. He answered the door looking like he hadn't slept, his eyes red-rimmed and haunted. I have conditions, Elena said before he could speak. Anything. Complete honesty. From now on, I don't care how ugly the truth is, you tell me everything. Okay? And you stop trying to protect me from yourself. I'm an adult. I get to decide what I can handle. Okay? And you trust me. She stepped closer, looking up at him. You trust that I'm here because I want to be. Not because I don't know what you are, but because I do know, and I'm choosing you anyway. Adrian's face crumpled. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you have me. Elena reached up and cupped his face. All of me. Monster and all. He kissed her then, desperate and grateful and full of promises neither of them knew if they could keep. But standing there in the doorway, as the sun rose over the city, Elena chose to believe they could make it work, even if the darkness was coming for them both. The peace lasted exactly 11 days. Elena should have known better, should have recognized the calm for what it was, the eye of a storm, not its end. But she'd been too caught up in the fragile happiness they'd built, in Adrian's attempts to be more open, in the way he'd started sharing the darker details of his world without her having to pry them out of him. He told her about the protection rackets he ran, but also about the small businesses he kept afloat when bigger corporations tried to crush them. About the bribes he paid to keep certain councilmen in his pocket, but also about the domestic violence shelters he funded anonymously. He was complicated and contradictory and exactly as honest as he'd promised to be. And Elena had started to believe they might actually survive this. Then Katya Kozlov struck. It happened on a Tuesday. Elena was at work, hunched over her computer trying to meet a deadline, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just a photo. No words, no explanation. The image made her blood run cold. It was Jenna. tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, her mouth gagged, her eyes wide with terror. And standing behind her, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure Elena recognized from news photos. Dmitry Kozlov, Katya's other brother. Her phone rang immediately. Same unknown number. "Don't hang up," Katya's voice was eerily calm. "And don't call Adrian, not yet. If you hurt her, then you'll what? You have no power here, Elena, no leverage, no way to save your friend except to do exactly what I tell you." Elena's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. "What do you want?" "Adrian, obviously." Katya sounded almost bored. "You're going to bring him to me, alone. No Victor, no security. Just you and the man who killed my brother. He'll never agree to that." "Then your friend dies. Slowly, painfully, while you listen." Katya paused. "I'll text you an address. You have 2 hours. If you're late, if you bring anyone else, if you so much as breathe wrong, she's dead. Understand?" "Yes." "Good. And Elena, don't bother trying to be a hero. You're not built for this world. You'll just get everyone killed." The line went dead. Elena sat there staring at her phone, her mind racing. She should call the police, should call Adrian, should do literally anything except what Katya was demanding. But the image of Jenna, terrified and helpless, kept flashing through her mind. This was her fault. Jenna had warned her, had told her that dating Adrian would put a target on her back, and Elena had ignored it. And now her best friend was going to die because Elena had fallen in love with the wrong man. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out of the office without a word to anyone. Her hands were still shaking as she pulled out her phone and called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. "Hey, everything okay?" "No?" Elena's voice cracked. "Katya has Jenna." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then very quietly, "Where are you?" "In my car. She sent me a photo and an address. She wants you to come alone or she'll kill her." "Elena, listen to me very carefully. Do not go to that address. Do not do anything until I get there." "She said 2 hours, Adrian. We don't have time. We have enough time to do this right." "Where are you parked?" She told him, and he said, "Stay there. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't move." But Elena couldn't just sit there. Every second that passed was a second Jenna spent terrified and alone. She looked at the address Katya had sent, an industrial area near the old shipping district. 40 minutes away in traffic. She started the car. Her phone rang immediately. "Adrian, I told you to wait," he said, and there was an edge to his voice that would have scared her if she wasn't already terrified. "How did you? Your car has a tracker. I can see you moving." He took a breath. "Elena, please, pull over. Let me handle this." "She has Jenna because of me, because I'm with you. This is my fault." "It's not your fault. It's Katya's. And she's using your guilt to manipulate you into doing something stupid." "What else am I supposed to do? Let my best friend die?" "No, you're supposed to trust me." Adrian's voice softened. "I know you're scared. I know you think you have to fix this yourself. But walking into that warehouse alone is suicide. For both of you." She said to come alone. "And you believed her?" "Elena, Katya wants me dead. Bringing you along is just insurance. The second she has what she wants, she'll kill all of you." Elena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "So what's your plan? Storm in with an army and hope Jenna doesn't get caught in the crossfire?" "My plan is to get your friend back alive. But I can't do that if you're already there putting yourself in danger." He paused. "Please, pull over. Let me come to you." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this, but the truth was, she had no idea what she was doing. She was a graphic designer, not some kind of action hero. And Adrian was right. Walking into Katya's trap alone would just get everyone killed. She pulled over into a gas station parking lot and waited. Adrian arrived in 7 minutes, not 10, with Victor right behind him. He was out of the car before it fully stopped, pulling Elena into his arms with enough force to knock the breath out of her. "Don't ever do that again," he said into her hair. "Don't ever scare me like that." "Jenna, I know. We'll get her back." He pulled away enough to look at her, and his eyes were fierce. "But you need to stay here with Victor while I handle this." "Absolutely not." "Elena, She's my best friend, Adrian. I'm not sitting in a parking lot while you risk your life to save her. This is what I do, what I'm trained for. You going in there doesn't help. It just gives Katya more leverage. I don't care. Elena pulled away from him. You can either take me with you or I'll drive there myself. Your choice. Adrian looked at Victor, who just shrugged. She's stubborn. Wonder where she gets it from. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing, boss. Victor checked his gun with practiced efficiency. But she's right. Katya specifically asked for her to bring you. If Elena doesn't show, Katya might panic and kill the friend. Adrian swore in Russian. Fine. But you stay in the car. You don't get out unless I specifically tell you to. And if things go sideways, Victor drives you out of there immediately. No arguments. Okay? I mean it, Elena. No heroics, no trying to save me. You stay safe. She wanted to point out the hypocrisy, that he was asking her to do exactly what he refused to do, but there wasn't time. I promise. They took Adrian's car with Victor following in a second vehicle. The drive to the warehouse district was tense and silent, except for Adrian making phone calls in Russian, assembling what sounded like a small army. Elena tried not to think about what was coming, tried not to imagine Jenna hurt or scared or worse. Tell me about her, Adrian said suddenly. Elena blinked. What? Your friend, Jenna. Tell me about her. Why? Because it helps to remember who we're fighting for, and because it'll keep you from spiraling. He was right. Elena took a shaky breath. We met in college. She spilled coffee on me in the library during finals week and then insisted on buying me a new shirt, even though she was broke. We've been best friends ever since. What does she do? She's a social worker, works with at-risk kids in the city. Elena's voice cracked. She helps people, Adrian. She doesn't deserve this. No one deserves this. His jaw was tight. But we're going to get her back. I promise. They arrived at the address with 20 minutes to spare. The warehouse was exactly what Elena had expected. Abandoned, decrepit, with broken windows and graffiti covering the walls. Adrian parked 2 blocks away and turned to face her. Last chance to stay behind. Not happening. He sighed and cupped her face in his hands. If something happens to me in there, you run. You don't look back, you don't try to help. You just run and let Victor get you somewhere safe. Adrian, promise me. Elena wanted to refuse, but the look in his eyes, raw fear mixed with determination, made her cave. I promise. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, like it might be the last time. Then he pulled away and became someone else entirely. The gentleness disappeared, replaced by cold focus. This was Adrian Voss, the kingpin, the man who controlled the city through fear and force. They walked toward the warehouse, Adrian slightly ahead of her, his hand hovering near the gun at his hip. Victor had disappeared to cover the back entrance. The front door was open, practically inviting them in. Inside, the warehouse was dark except for a single spotlight illuminating the center of the space. And there, exactly as promised, was Jenna. She was still tied to the chair, still gagged, but her eyes widened with relief when she saw Elena. Then Katya stepped out of the shadows, and Elena's relief turned to ice. She wasn't alone. At least a dozen armed men surrounded them, guns trained on Adrian. And standing next to Katya, looking smug and far too pleased with himself, was Marcus. You've got to be kidding me, Elena said. Marcus smiled. Surprise. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Elena felt him tense beside her. I should have killed you when I had the chance. Probably. But you were too busy playing house with my ex-girlfriend. Marcus gestured to Katya. Turns out we have mutual interests. She wants you dead. I want Elena back. Simple trade. I'm not a possession you can trade, Elena snapped. You are until I say otherwise. Marcus took a step toward her, and Adrian moved to block him. Easy, Voss. You're outnumbered here. One wrong move and your girlfriend's friend gets a bullet in the head. Katya raised her gun, pointing it directly at Jenna. He's right. So here's how this is going to work. Adrian, you're going to put down your weapon and get on your knees. Elena, you're going to come stand next to Marcus like a good girl. And maybe, I'll let your friend live. And if I refuse, Adrian's voice was dangerously calm, then I start shooting. The friend first, then Elena, then you, in that order. Katya's finger moved to the trigger. Your choice. Elena watched Adrian calculate the odds, watched him scan the room, looking for exits and weaknesses. She could practically see him running through scenarios, trying to find a way out that didn't end with everyone dead. But there wasn't one. Okay, Adrian said quietly. He raised his hand slowly, then pulled his gun out with 2 fingers and set it on the ground. Let them go. This is between us. No. Katya's smile was cold. This is about making you watch everyone you love suffer, the way I watched my brother die. Your brother was a monster who deserved what he got. And what does that make you yet? Katya fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. But it didn't hit Adrian. It hit the concrete at his feet, close enough to spray dust on his shoes. Next one goes in her knee, Katya said, redirecting the gun toward Jenna. On your knees, Voss. Now. Adrian dropped to his knees, his eyes never leaving Katya's face. Elena's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. This was wrong. All of it was wrong, but she didn't know how to fix it. Elena, Marcus said, holding out his hand. Come here. Go to hell. He moved faster than she expected, crossing the distance and grabbing her arm hard enough to bruise. I said, come here. Adrian surged to his feet, but 3 guns immediately trained on him. He froze, hands raised, his expression murderous. Touch her again and I'll rip your throat out with my bare hands, Adrian said quietly. Marcus laughed and pulled Elena closer, his arm wrapping around her waist possessively. You're not in a position to make threats. In case you haven't noticed, I won. You haven't won anything, Elena said, trying to pull away. I'll never go back to you. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. Marcus's grip tightened. But first, you're going to watch Adrian pay for taking what's mine. Katya walked closer to Adrian, her gun now pointed at his head. Any last words? Adrian looked past her, directly at Elena. I love you. Whatever happens, remember that. Adrian, no! The explosion was so loud Elena's ears rang. But it wasn't Katya's gun. It was the back wall of the warehouse, blown inward by what looked like a small bomb. Smoke and debris filled the air, and in the chaos, Victor appeared like something out of an action movie, firing with precision that took down 3 of Katya's men before anyone could react. Marcus's grip loosened in surprise, and Elena didn't hesitate. She drove her elbow into his stomach and ran toward Jenna as gunfire erupted around them. Adrian moved at the same time, tackling Katya to the ground before she could fire. They fought viciously, rolling across the concrete as bullets flew overhead. Elena reached Jenna and started working on the ropes, her hands shaking. I'm so sorry, Elena said, pulling the gag from Jenna's mouth. I'm so sorry. Less apologizing, more untying, Jenna gasped. The ropes were tight and complicated, and Elena's fingers were clumsy with panic. Behind her, she could hear Adrian and Katya still fighting, hear Victor shouting orders, hear Marcus screaming for someone to grab Elena. Finally, the ropes came loose. Jenna stumbled to her feet just as one of Katya's men appeared from the smoke, gun raised. Elena didn't think. She just moved, putting herself between the gun and her best friend. The shot rang out. For a terrible moment, Elena thought she'd been hit, but it was the gunman who fell, a red stain blooming on his chest. Victor stood behind him, already moving to the next target. Get her out of here, Victor shouted, and Elena grabbed Jenna's hand and ran. They made it to the blown-out wall when Elena heard Adrian scream her name. She turned and saw Katya, bloodied but still standing, her gun pointed directly at Adrian's back as he fought off 2 of her men. Elena didn't think. She grabbed a piece of rebar from the debris and threw it as hard as she could. It wasn't a great throw. She'd never played sports, had terrible aim on a good day, but luck was on her side. The rebar hit Katya in the shoulder, making her shot go wide. Adrian spun and grabbed the gun, twisting it out of her hands with brutal efficiency. And then it was over. Victor and his team had neutralized the rest of Katya's men. Marcus was on the ground, hands zip-tied behind his back, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. And Katya knelt in front of Adrian, his gun pressed to her temple, her expression defiant even in defeat. Do it, she said. Make me a martyr like my brother. Adrian's finger was on the trigger. Elena could see the war playing out on his face, the desire for revenge warring with something else, something that looked like mercy. No, he said finally, lowering the gun. You're going to live, And you're going to remember that I chose to let you live, that I was the bigger person. He turned to Victor. Call Dmitri at the precinct. Tell him we have a human trafficking ringleader to turn over. He looked back at Katya. I'm sure the FBI will be very interested in your organization's activities. Katya's face went pale. In Adrian's world, there were worse things than death. Prison was one of them. Elena stumbled toward Adrian, her legs suddenly shaky. He caught her, pulling her against his chest so hard she could barely breathe. You threw rebar at an armed woman, he said into her hair. That's the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. You were going to die, and you promised to run if things went sideways. I lied. Elena pulled back enough to look at him. Blood was dripping from a cut above his eyebrow, and his knuckles were raw, but he was alive. I'm not good at following orders. I've noticed. He kissed her, hard and grateful and full of relief. They were interrupted by Jenna's shaky voice. So, this is your boyfriend. Elena turned to see her best friend standing in the debris, covered in dust and looking shell-shocked but alive. Jenna, you're dating a crime lord who just bombed a building and probably killed like 6 people. Jenna's voice was getting higher. That's your type now? It's complicated. Complicated? Elena, I was kidnapped because of your complicated boyfriend. Adrian stepped forward, and Jenna immediately backed up. I'm sorry you were dragged into this. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did happen. Because you exist. Because Elena is with you. Jenna's voice shook. I could have died tonight. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. Adrian's expression was sincere. I'll put security on you, full time. No one will touch you. I don't want security. I want my friend to be safe. She is safe. With me. Are you kidding me right now? Jenna turned to Elena. He almost got you killed. He saved my life multiple times. Elena crossed to her friend. I know this is insane. I know it's dangerous, but I love him, Jenna, and he loves me, and we're going to make this work. You're out of your mind. Probably. Elena took Jenna's hands. But you're my best friend, and I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. Jenna looked between Elena and Adrian, then sighed. I don't trust him at all, but I trust you. She pointed at Adrian. You hurt her, and I don't care how many guns you have. I will end you. Adrian's mouth twitched. Noted. The cleanup took hours. Police arrived, ones on Adrian's payroll, and took statements that would never be filed accurately. Katya and Marcus were hauled away in separate vehicles, both screaming threats that nobody listened to. The bodies were removed, evidence was collected, and then mysteriously disappeared. By the time they made it back to Adrian's house, the sun was rising. Elena was exhausted, covered in dust and blood that wasn't hers, and shaking from adrenaline crash. Adrian looked equally destroyed, but he moved through his post-crisis routine with practiced efficiency, checking in with Victor, making sure Jenna got home safely with 2 guards she didn't want, securing the perimeter. Elena watched him from the couch, too tired to do anything else. This was his life, this chaos, this violence, this constant state of preparedness for the next attack. And she'd chosen it, chosen him. When Adrian finally finished and collapsed next to her, they sat in silence for a long moment. I almost lost you tonight, he said quietly. I almost lost you too. Elena, I can't. His voice broke. I can't go through that again, seeing that gun pointed at you, knowing I might not be fast enough to stop it. But you were fast enough. Victor was fast enough. We're all alive. This time, Adrian turned to face her, and his eyes were haunted. But what about next time? What about the time after that? How many times can we cheat death before our luck runs out? Elena took his battered hands in hers. As many times as it takes, because I'm not going anywhere, Adrian. You're stuck with me. Even after tonight? After seeing exactly how ugly my world gets? Especially after tonight. She kissed his scraped knuckles. You think I don't know what I signed up for? I'm not naive. I know there will be more nights like this. More danger. More impossible choices. Then why stay? Because when I'm with you, I feel alive. I feel like I matter. Like I'm part of something bigger than myself. Elena moved closer, resting her forehead against his. And because I love you, all of you, even the parts that scare me. Adrian kissed her then, soft and slow, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When he pulled away, there were tears in his eyes. "I love you so much it terrifies me," he whispered. "You've become the most important thing in my world, and that makes you the most dangerous weakness I have." "Then stop seeing me as a weakness," Elena's voice was firm. "Start seeing me as a strength. We're better together, Adrian. Tonight proved that." He smiled despite everything. "You did throw rebar at an armed woman for me, and I'd do it again." "Please don't." But he was still smiling. "My heart can't take it." They went upstairs eventually, both too wired to sleep but too exhausted to do anything else. Adrian showered first, washing away the blood and the dust and the violence. Then Elena, letting the hot water soothe her aching muscles and calm her racing thoughts. When she emerged, Adrian was in bed, staring at the ceiling. She slid in next to him, and he immediately pulled her close. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now the Kozlov organization falls apart without leadership. Marcus goes to prison for conspiracy and kidnapping, and he paused. "We figure out how to build a life that doesn't involve getting shot at every other week." "Is that possible?" "I don't know, but I want to try." Adrian's arms tightened around her. "I want to try to be better. For you." "You don't have to change for me. Maybe I want to change for myself." He was quiet for a moment. "My father once told me that power is the only thing that matters, that love makes you weak. I believed that for a long time. And now? Now I think he was wrong. Love doesn't make you weak. It makes you fight harder, try harder, be better than you thought you could be." Adrian kissed the top of her head. "You make me want to be better." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek. They'd survived tonight, barely. But they'd survived together, and that had to count for something. "I'm all in," she whispered. "Whatever comes next, I'm all in. Even if it's hard?" "Especially if it's hard." Adrian's arms tightened around her, and they lay there in the growing dawn, two people who'd chosen each other despite every logical reason not to. The danger wasn't over. It probably never would be. But they'd face it together, and somehow that made all the difference. The months that followed the warehouse weren't easy. Elena had expected some kind of fairy tale ending, the villain defeated, the hero and heroine riding off into the sunset. Instead, she got the messy, complicated reality of building a life with someone whose past kept reaching out to drag them both backward. Marcus took a plea deal and got 15 years. Katya's trial was still pending, but with the evidence stacked against her, she wasn't getting out anytime soon. The Kozlov organization fractured without leadership, smaller players fighting over the scraps, while Adrian quietly absorbed the pieces worth keeping and dismantled the rest. But victory came with a price. Adrian had nightmares almost every night now, waking up gasping, reaching for weapons that weren't there, calling out names of people Elena didn't recognize. She'd hold him until the shaking stopped, until he remembered where he was and who he was with. Some nights he'd talk about it, about his father's brutality, about the first man he'd killed, about all the weight he carried. Other nights he'd just hold her and try to forget. Elena had her own demons. She'd see Marcus's face in crowds that didn't contain him, flinch at loud noises, wake up from dreams where Jenna was still tied to that chair and no one came to save her. Her therapist, because Adrian had insisted she see someone, and for once Elena hadn't argued, said it was normal, post-traumatic stress. It would fade with time. Time was something they were learning to navigate together. Elena had effectively moved into Adrian's house, though she still kept her apartment for appearances. Her co-workers had noticed the change in her, the expensive clothes Adrian insisted on buying, the car service that picked her up some mornings, the way she'd occasionally show up with bruises she'd blame on clumsiness, even though they both knew the truth. Melissa cornered her one day in the break room, eyes narrowed with concern. "Are you okay? And don't give me that 'I'm fine' crap. You look exhausted." "I'm just adjusting," Elena said, which wasn't exactly a lie. "To what? Your crazy hot boyfriend's crazy lifestyle?" Melissa lowered her voice. "I Googled him, you know, after you brought him to that work thing. The rumors about him are intense." "They're just rumors." "Are they?" Melissa studied her. "Because you look like someone who's in over her head and trying really hard to pretend she's not drowning. Elena wanted to deny it, but Melissa had always been able to see through her bullshit. It's complicated. It always is with guys like that. Melissa squeezed her shoulder. Just promise me you know what you're doing, and if you ever need help, real help, you call me. No questions asked. I promise. But the truth was, Elena wasn't sure she knew what she was doing. She loved Adrian, that part was clear, but loving him meant accepting a world she barely understood, with rules that shifted depending on who had the most power at any given moment. It meant living with security guards who pretended to be invisible but were always watching. It meant dinner parties with people whose hands were as bloodstained as Adrian's, all of them playing at civility while calculating how to destroy each other. It meant becoming someone she barely recognized. The breaking point came on a Thursday night, 3 months after the warehouse. Adrian had a business dinner, legitimate business, he had assured her, with investors for a new development project. But when midnight came and went with no word from him, Elena started to worry. By 1 a.m. she was pacing. By 2, she was calling Victor. He's fine, Victor said, but there was something off in his voice. Just running late. Where is he? Elena. Victor. Where is he? A long pause. The old bottling plant on River Street. But you can't go there. Adrian would kill me if I let you. Elena hung up and grabbed her keys. The drive across the city at 2 in the morning should have scared her. 6 months ago, it would have. But she'd learned to navigate Adrian's world, learned which streets were safe, and which belonged to people who'd slit your throat for looking at them wrong. The bottling plant was in neutral territory, no one's and everyone's at once. She parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, the way Adrian had taught her. Stay in the shadows, move quietly, always have an exit strategy. The building was dark except for a single lit window on the 2nd floor. Elena found a fire escape and climbed, her heart hammering in her chest. When she reached the window, she looked inside and felt her stomach drop. Adrian was there, bloody and bruised, sitting across from a man Elena didn't recognize. Between them on the table was a gun. They were talking in low voices, too quiet for Elena to hear through the glass. But the body language was clear. This was a negotiation. And from the way Adrian's hand kept drifting toward the weapon, not a friendly one. Elena should have left, should have trusted that Adrian could handle himself, but something about the scene felt wrong. The other man was too calm, too confident, and there were shadows in the corners that might have been other people, might have been nothing. She pulled out her phone and texted Victor. I'm at the bottling plant. Something's wrong. The response came immediately. Stay where you are. Don't go in. But Elena was already moving, finding a door that led inside, creeping through abandoned hallways toward the voices. As she got closer, she could finally hear what they were saying. Thinking this is a negotiation, the stranger said. It's not. You killed my cousin. I kill you. That's how this works. Your cousin was trafficking children. Adrian's voice was cold. He deserved worse than what he got. Maybe. But family is family. The man reached for the gun. Adrian was faster, but not fast enough to see the second man emerge from the shadows behind him, knife raised. Elena didn't think. She just screamed, Adrian, behind you! Everything happened at once. Adrian spun. The first man grabbed the gun. The second man lunged with the knife. And Elena, still in the doorway, watched in horror as Adrian took the knife meant for his back and his shoulder instead, twisting away at the last second. Then Victor was there, crashing through a different entrance with 3 other men, and the room erupted into chaos. Gunshots, shouting, the sick sound of fists hitting flesh. Elena pressed herself against the wall, trying to stay small, trying not to be a target. It was over in less than a minute. The strangers were down, dead or unconscious. Elena couldn't tell. Victor was zip-tying wrists, and Adrian was slumped against the table, blood spreading across his shirt from the knife wound in his shoulder. Elena ran to him. Oh my God, you're bleeding! What are you doing here? Adrian's voice was tight with pain and fury. I told Victor to keep you away from this. He tried. I didn't listen. Elena pressed her hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals, too many questions. Adrian winced as she applied pressure. There's a doctor. Victor knows. Adrian, you've been stabbed. I've been stabbed before. I'll survive. He grabbed her wrist with his good hand. But you could have been killed. Do you understand that? If you'd walked in 30 seconds earlier, if they'd seen you first, but they didn't. I'm fine. You're the one bleeding. Because you distracted me. His eyes were blazing despite the pain. I had it under control until you screamed. You had a knife coming at your back. How is that under control? I would have sensed it. I always do. Well, excuse me for not trusting your spider sense over my own eyes. Elena's hands were shaking, covered in his blood. I thought you were going to die. So you decided to die with me? That's your plan? My plan was to save you, you stubborn... Elena's voice broke. You scared me. You were gone for hours with no word, and then Victor was being cagey, and I thought something had happened to you. Adrian's expression softened slightly. So you drove across the city at 2 a.m. to what? Rescue me? Yes, obviously. Elena was crying now, though she hadn't realized it until the tears hit her hands. Because I love you, and I can't just sit at home wondering if you're dead in a ditch somewhere. Elena, and I know you think you have to protect me from everything, but I'm not some delicate flower who needs to be locked in a tower. I'm your partner. That means I get to worry about you. I get to show up when things go wrong. I get to... Adrian kissed her, hard and desperate and tasting like blood. When he pulled away, he rested his forehead against hers. You're going to give me a heart attack, he whispered. Good. Then we're even. Victor cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move. Cops are probably on their way. Adrian nodded and stood, wincing. Elena ducked under his good arm, supporting his weight, and they made it to the car. The drive to the doctor's place was tense and silent. Elena kept her hands pressed against Adrian's wound, feeling his blood seep between her fingers, trying not to think about how close she'd come to losing him. The doctor, a gray-haired woman who asked no questions and worked with efficient precision, stitched Adrian up in her kitchen while Elena paced and tried not to throw up. 15 stitches. Antibiotics. Instructions to rest that Adrian would definitely ignore. You got lucky, the doctor said as she finished bandaging. Another inch to the left and he'd have hit the artery. You'd be dead. Story of my life, Adrian said, attempting a smile that came out as more of a grimace. They made it back to his house as the sun was rising. Elena helped Adrian upstairs, got him settled in bed, and then stood there staring at him, all the fear and anger and love churning in her chest. Say it, Adrian said quietly. Say what? Whatever you're thinking. You've been holding it in since the bottling plant. Elena sat down on the edge of the bed. I can't keep doing this. Adrian went very still. What do you mean? I mean the secrets, the late-night disappearances, the coming home covered in blood. I meant what I said about being your partner, Adrian, but you keep shutting me out. You tell me you're going to a business dinner, and then I find you in an abandoned building getting stabbed. I was trying to protect you. By lying to me? By making me think you're safe when you're walking into a trap? Elena's voice rose. That's not protection. That's treating me like I'm too stupid or too fragile to handle the truth. That's not... Adrian winced as he tried to sit up. I don't think you're stupid. I think you're the smartest person I know. But this world, my world, it's designed to destroy anything good. And you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I can't stand the thought of it touching you. It already has. Marcus kidnapped Jenna because of me. Katya threatened me. I've watched you bleed more times than I can count. I'm already in this, Adrian. All the way in. So stop trying to protect me from a reality I'm already living. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. You're right. What? You're right. I've been shutting you out, trying to keep you separate from the ugly parts of my life. But that's not fair to you, and it's not sustainable for us. He reached for her hand. I'm sorry. Elena wasn't sure she'd ever heard him apologize so sincerely. So what changes? Everything. No more secrets. No more disappearing without explanation. You want to know where I'm going and who I'm meeting? I'll tell you. You want to be involved in decisions that affect both of us? You're involved. He squeezed her hand. I can't promise it won't be dangerous, but I can promise to stop treating you like you can't handle it. That's all I'm asking for. And I'm asking you to promise me something in return. Adrian's eyes were serious. Promise me you'll stop running headfirst into danger without backup. What you did tonight, showing up alone at a meeting that could have gotten you killed, that can't happen again. But, Elena, I'm serious. You want to be my partner? Fine. But partners communicate. They work together. They don't go rogue because they're worried. He pulled her closer with his good arm. I need to know you're safe, not just for me, for both of us. Elena wanted to argue, but he had a point. Okay, no more going rogue. Thank you. They fell asleep tangled together, both exhausted and bloody, and somehow more committed than they'd been before. When Elena woke up hours later, Adrian was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked. Marry me. Elena blinked. What? Marry me. Adrian shifted to face her fully, wincing at the pull on his stitches. I know it's sudden. I know we've only been together a few months, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Adrian, you were just stabbed. You're on pain medication. This is not the drugs talking. I've been thinking about this for weeks. He took her hand. I love you, Elena. I want to build a life with you. A real life, not this half-in, half-out thing we've been doing. We literally just had a fight about communication, which we resolved, like adults, like partners. Adrian smiled. That's exactly why I want to marry you, because you call me on my bullshit, because you don't let me get away with anything, because you make me want to be better than I am. Elena's heart was racing. This is insane. Probably. Most things about us are. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. But I'm all in, Elena. Completely. Irrevocably. For better or worse. And I want to know if you're all in too. She should say no. Should insist they wait. That they barely knew each other. That getting married to a crime lord was possibly the worst decision she could make. But when she looked at Adrian, bruised and bandaged and looking at her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth, she couldn't find it in herself to refuse. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll marry you. Adrian's smile was brilliant. He kissed her carefully, mindful of his injuries, and Elena felt something settle in her chest. This was right. Crazy and dangerous and completely illogical, but right. I don't have a ring, Adrian admitted. I was planning to do this properly. Take you back to Marcello's where we met. Get down on one knee, the whole thing. I don't need a ring. I just need you. You're getting a ring anyway, the biggest diamond I can find. Elena laughed. That's very mob boss of you. I prefer reformed crime lord with excellent taste in jewelry. You're not reformed. I'm working on it. He pulled her closer. For you? I'm working on it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Adrian kept his word about no more secrets. He told her about every meeting, every deal, every potential threat. Some of it was boring. A lot of it was terrifying. But Elena appreciated the honesty, even when the truth was ugly. And Adrian started making changes, real ones. He sold off the shadier parts of his empire, the gambling operations, the protection rackets, anything that crossed too far over the line. He started investing in legitimate businesses, using his wealth and influence to actually help the city instead of just controlling it. It wasn't a complete transformation. He was still Adrian Voss, still someone people feared and respected in equal measure. But he was trying to be better. The ring appeared 2 weeks after his proposal. He took her back to Marcello's, booked the entire restaurant for the night, and got down on one knee in the same spot where she'd fallen into his lap months ago. This is where it started, he said, opening a small velvet box to reveal a diamond that was probably worth more than her car. Where you crashed into my life and changed everything, and I want it to be where we promised to spend the rest of our lives together. Elena was crying too hard to form words. She just nodded and Adrian slipped the ring on her finger. A perfect fit, because of course he'd somehow figured out her size without asking. They set a date for 6 months out. Small wedding, just close friends and family. Adrian didn't have much family left. A distant cousin in Chicago, an aunt who hadn't spoken to him in years. Elena's mother flew in from Florida, took one look at Adrian, and pulled Elena aside. Are you sure about this? Her mother asked. He's very intense. I'm sure, Mom. Because you don't have to marry the first man who pays attention to you after Marcus. Adrian is nothing like Marcus. Elena's voice was firm. He treats me like an equal. He listens to me. He makes me happy. Her mother studied her for a long moment. You do look happy. Happier than I've seen you in years, she sighed. Just promise me you know what you're getting into. I do. I really do. The wedding planning was surprisingly normal. Elena had expected Adrian to want something extravagant, but he insisted on simple. A small ceremony in the garden of his house, dinner at his favorite restaurant, dancing under the stars. The only concession to his lifestyle was the security. Victor and his team positioned strategically throughout, making sure no uninvited guests crashed the party. Jenna agreed to be Elena's maid of honor, though she still had reservations about the whole thing. I just want you to be happy, Jenna said the night before the wedding, helping Elena into her dress for the final fitting. And if he makes you happy, then I'm happy. But I'm also keeping pepper spray in my bouquet tomorrow, just in case. That's very you. Someone has to be practical. Jenna adjusted the veil. You really love him, don't you? More than I thought I could love anyone. Even knowing what he is, what he's done? Elena thought about it. I think I love him because I know what he is. Because he's honest about his flaws. Because he doesn't pretend to be perfect. That's either really mature or really messed up. Why not both? They both laughed, and Elena felt a weight lift off her shoulders. This was really happening. She was really marrying Adrian Voss. And despite everything, despite the danger and the violence and the impossibility of it all, she'd never been more certain of anything. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Elena got ready in the guest room, surrounded by Jenna and her mother and a makeup artist Adrian had insisted on hiring. When she finally looked at herself in the mirror, white dress, hair done, makeup perfect, she barely recognized herself. You look beautiful, her mother said, tears in her eyes. Your father would have been proud. Elena's throat tightened. Her father had died when she was 10 before she'd understood what love really meant. She wished he could be here to walk her down the aisle. But in a way, maybe he was. The ceremony was small and intimate, exactly as they'd planned. Victor stood up as Adrian's best man, looking uncomfortable in a suit. Jenna held Elena's bouquet and glared at anyone who looked suspicious. And Adrian waited at the altar, watching Elena walk toward him with an expression that made her knees weak. The officiant, a judge who owed Adrian more favors than Elena wanted to know about, kept it short and sweet. Traditional vows with a few personal additions. When it came time for Adrian to speak, he took Elena's hands and looked at her like they were the only two people in the world. I'm not good with words, he started. I'm better with actions. But today I want to tell you what you mean to me. He took a breath. You saved my life, not just that night at the warehouse. Every day. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe I can be more than what my father was. You're my light in the darkness, my anchor in the storm, my reason for trying. His voice cracked. I love you, Elena Carter, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving it. Elena was crying. Jenna was crying. Even Victor looked suspiciously misty-eyed. When it was Elena's turn, she squeezed Adrian's hands and smiled through her tears. I fell into your lap by accident, but loving you was a choice. One I make every single day. You're not perfect, neither am I. But we're perfect together, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life figuring out what that means. The kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise, and when they turned to face their small gathering of friends and family, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. The reception was everything Elena had hoped for. Good food, better wine, and dancing under strings of lights that made everything feel magical. Adrian held her close for their first dance, swaying to a song that wasn't quite slow enough but perfect anyway. How are you feeling, Mrs. Voss? He murmured against her ear. Strange. Good. Like this is a dream I'm going to wake up from. If it is, we're both dreaming. Adrian pulled back enough to look at her. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. For staying. For loving me even when I didn't deserve it. You deserve it. Elena stood on her toes and kissed him. You deserve to be happy, Adrian, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you are. They danced until Elena's feet hurt, ate cake until they were both slightly sick, and laughed more than Elena had laughed in months. When the last guest finally left and they were alone in their house now, not just his, Adrian carried her over the threshold despite her protests. I'm not an invalid, Elena said, laughing. Tradition, and I like any excuse to hold you. He set her down in the bedroom and started helping her out of the dress. Besides, you're stuck with me now. Legally. No takebacks. I don't want takebacks. Good. Because I wasn't offering. They made love slowly, carefully, both of them savoring every moment. Afterward, wrapped in Adrian's arms with the city lights twinkling outside their window, Elena felt peace settle over her like a blanket. What are you thinking? Adrian asked. That I can't believe this is my life now. Good can't believe or bad can't believe? Good. Definitely good. Elena traced patterns on his chest. A year ago, I was stuck in a terrible relationship with a guy who didn't value me. Now I'm married to someone who sees me, really sees me. It's surreal. I see you, Adrian confirmed, kissing the top of her head. All of you, and I'm never letting you go. 3 months into their marriage, Elena woke up feeling awful. She'd been tired for days, slightly nauseous, and her appetite was all over the place. At first, she blamed stress. Adrian had been dealing with a territorial dispute with a crew from the east side, and the tension in the house had been thick. But when she fainted at work, Melissa insisted on taking her to the doctor. The test results came back 2 hours later. Elena stared at the paper, reading the words over and over, unable to process them. Pregnant. 6 weeks. She was going to have a baby, Adrian's baby. Elena sat in her car for 20 minutes, trying to figure out how she felt. Scared, definitely. This wasn't planned. They'd only been married 3 months, together less than a year. But underneath the fear was something else. Excitement, hope, a bone-deep certainty that this was right. She drove to Adrian's office downtown, a legitimate office in a high-rise where he conducted his above-board business. His assistant waved her through with a smile, and Elena found him on a conference call, scowling at spreadsheets. He looked up when she entered and immediately ended the call. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Elena pulled the test results from her purse and handed them to him. I need to tell you something. Adrian read the paper, read it again, then looked up at her with an expression Elena couldn't quite decipher. You're pregnant, he said slowly. Yeah. Surprise. He stood, crossed to her, and pulled her into his arms so tight she could barely breathe. Are you okay? Do you need to sit down? Should you be driving? We should get you home. Adrian, I'm fine. Pregnant women don't explode. I know, He pulled back, hands framing her face, and Elena saw tears in his eyes. We're going to have a baby. We are. Are you? Is this okay? I know we didn't plan. It's more than okay. Adrian kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. It's perfect. You're perfect. This whole thing is... His voice broke. I never thought I'd get this. A wife. A family. A real life. Well, you have it now. Elena took his hands and placed them on her still flat stomach. All of it. They stood there for a long moment, both of them processing the enormity of what was coming. Then Adrian dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead against her stomach. I'm going to protect you both, he whispered. I swear, nothing will ever hurt either of you. Elena ran her fingers through his hair, feeling tears slide down her own cheeks. I know, I trust you. The pregnancy was surprisingly normal, all things considered. Morning sickness that lasted all day for the first trimester. Cravings for weird food combinations that made Adrian laugh. A growing belly that made everything from tying shoes to sleeping comfortable a challenge. But through it all, Adrian was there. He went to every doctor's appointment, asked a million questions, and read every pregnancy book he could find. He baby-proofed the house months before it was necessary. He interviewed dozens of pediatricians until he found one he trusted. And he talked to Elena's stomach every night, telling their unborn child stories about the city, about Elena, about the life they were going to build together. You're going to be a good dad, Elena said one night, watching him trace patterns on her belly. I hope so. I didn't exactly have a great example. You're nothing like your father. I want to be better than him. I want our kid to grow up knowing they're loved, that they matter, that they don't have to earn affection through violence or fear. Adrian looked up at her. I want them to have what I didn't. They will. We'll make sure of it. Elena went into labor 3 weeks before her due date on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Adrian, who'd been paranoid about this moment for months, somehow managed to panic worse than she did. Okay, we need to. Where's the bag? Where's the hospital bag? He was running through the house like his hair was on fire. Victor, start the car. Elena, sit down. No, lie down. Should you be standing? Adrian, breathe. I'm breathing. I'm fine. You're the one in labor. He finally found the bag and practically carried her to the car. We're going to be fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. You're spiraling. I'm not spiraling. I'm spiraling a little. Despite the chaos, they made it to the hospital with time to spare. The labor was long. 14 hours of contractions that made Elena reconsider every life choice that had led her here. But Adrian stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, coaching her breathing, letting her yell at him when the pain got too bad. When their daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect and impossibly tiny, Adrian cried harder than Elena had ever seen him cry. She's beautiful, he whispered, cradling the baby like she was made of glass. She's perfect. Look at her, Elena. We made this. Elena, exhausted and emotional and completely in love, watched her husband hold their daughter and felt her heart expand to sizes she didn't know were possible. What should we name her? They'd discussed names for months without settling on anything. But looking at their daughter now, with her dark hair and tiny fists and lungs that definitely came from Adrian's side of the family, the answer felt obvious. Hope, Adrian said. Her name is Hope. Hope Voss? Elena smiled. It's perfect. They brought Hope home 3 days later to a house that had been transformed. The nursery was ready, soft colors and comfortable furniture, and enough stuffed animals to stock a toy store. Victor and his team had swept the property twice for security threats. And Jenna was waiting with a casserole and enough unsolicited advice to last a lifetime. She's beautiful, Jenna said, peering at the baby. Looks just like you, Elena. Poor kid. Excuse me? I mean, at least she didn't get Adrian's criminal genes. I'm standing right here, Adrian said mildly. I know, I wanted you to hear me, but Jenna's expression softened. Seriously, though, congratulations, both of you. She's lucky to have you as parents. The first few weeks were chaos. Sleepless nights and endless diaper changes and learning to function on 2 hours of sleep. But through it all, Elena watched Adrian transform into the father she'd always known he could be. He was patient with Hope's crying, gentle with her tiny body, completely devoted to making sure she had everything she needed. And slowly, carefully, Elena watched him become the man he'd always wanted to be. He continued divesting from his criminal enterprises, investing instead in legitimate businesses and community programs. He started a foundation in Hope's name, funding education and healthcare for underprivileged kids. He even started going to therapy, working through the trauma his father had left behind. It wasn't a complete transformation. He was still Adrian Voss, still someone who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But he was also a husband and a father, and those roles mattered more to him than any empire ever had. On Hope's first birthday, Adrian took Elena back to Marcello's. They'd made it a tradition, returning to the place where everything started, remembering how far they'd come. A year ago, we were bringing our daughter home from the hospital, Elena said, sipping wine while Adrian scrolled through photos on his phone. Now she's walking and trying to say words and getting into everything. She's perfect. Adrian showed her a video of Hope taking wobbly steps toward the camera, just like her mother, biased, accurate. He set down his phone and took her hand. Thank you. For what? For falling into my lap that night, for staying even when leaving would have been smarter, for giving me a family I never thought I'd have. Adrian's eyes were serious. You changed my life, Elena, in every way that matters. You changed mine too. Elena squeezed his hand. I was invisible before you, just going through the motions. Now I feel alive. You were never invisible. I saw you from the moment you crashed into me. They finished dinner and walked out to find Victor waiting by the car, looking uncomfortable. Boss, we have a problem, Victor said. Elena's stomach dropped. A year of peace had made her complacent. She'd almost forgotten that danger was always lurking. What kind of problem? Adrian asked, his entire demeanor shifting. The kind that's waiting in your living room, says he's family. Victor grimaced. Your cousin, from Chicago. Adrian went very still. Nikolai. You know him? Unfortunately, Adrian turned to Elena. Stay with Victor. I'll handle this. No. Elena's voice was firm. We're partners, remember? We handle things together. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded and took her hand, and they drove home together to face whatever was waiting. Nikolai Voss was younger than Elena expected, maybe late 20s, with the same dark eyes as Adrian, but none of the warmth. He was sitting on their couch like he owned it, holding a drink he'd helped himself to, looking utterly at ease despite Victor's 3 men standing guard. Cousin, Nikolai said when they entered. You've done well for yourself. Nice house. Beautiful wife. His gaze slid to Elena in a way that made her skin crawl. Congratulations. What do you want, Nikolai? Adrian's voice was ice. Can a man visit family? We're not family. Not in any way that matters. Harsh. Nikolai stood, setting down his drink. But accurate. I'm here on business. I'm out of the business. So I've heard. Very noble of you. Very domestic. Nikolai's smile didn't reach his eyes. But the thing about our world, Adrian, is that you don't just get to walk away. The Petrov organization is expanding into your former territory. They wanted me to extend an invitation, join them, or watch everything you built burn. Tell the Petrovs I'm not interested. They thought you'd say that. Nikolai pulled out his phone and showed them a photo. It was Hope, asleep in her crib, taken from an angle that could only mean someone had been inside their house. So they sent a reminder of what you have to lose. Adrian moved so fast Elena barely saw it. 1 second Nikolai was standing, the next he was on the ground, Adrian's hand around his throat, murder in his eyes. You touch my daughter and I'll kill everyone you've ever met, Adrian said quietly. Your boss, your organization, everyone. I'll burn your entire world to the ground and salt the earth behind me. So you do still have teeth, Nikolai wheezed. Good. The Petrovs wanted to make sure you weren't going soft. Adrian released him and stepped back. Get out of my house and tell your bosses that if they come after my family again, there won't be negotiations, there will just be war. Nikolai stood, rubbing his throat. They'll take that as a yes. But then they're stupider than I thought. Adrian gestured to Victor. Escort him out and make sure he understands that this territory is closed. After Nikolai left, Adrian immediately went upstairs to check on Hope. Elena found him sitting next to her crib, watching their daughter sleep, his expression devastated. They were in our house, he said quietly, while we were gone. They took a picture of our baby. I know. Elena sat down next to him. What are we going to do? I'm going to end this, once and for all. Adrian's voice was hard. I've been trying to go legitimate, to build a better life. But they won't let me, so I'm going to remind them why they were afraid of me in the first place. Adrian, I'm not losing you, either of you. I don't care what I have to do. Elena took his hand. Then we do it together. You're not going to war alone. Elena, this isn't your fight. It is if they're threatening our daughter. Our family. Elena's voice was firm. You want to remind them who you are? Fine. But you do it smart. With backup. With a plan. Not by going in guns blazing and getting yourself killed. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her close and held on tight. Okay. Together. The next week was tense. Adrian called in every favor he had, assembled an alliance of former rivals, and built a case against the Petrov organization that would make them radioactive to every legitimate business in the city. He didn't just go to war, he went scorched earth, dismantling their operations piece by piece until they had nothing left. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleepless nights and constant vigilance, and Elena jumping at every shadow. But when it was over, the Petrovs were in federal custody on charges ranging from racketeering to attempted murder, and Nikolai was facing 20 years in prison. Adrian came home the night it ended looking exhausted but relieved. He went straight to Hope's nursery, picked up their sleeping daughter, and just held her. It's over, he said when Elena joined them. Really over. The Petrovs are done, Nikolai's done, and I made it very clear to everyone else that my family is off limits. Forever. What did you do? Nothing illegal, mostly. Adrian smiled slightly. I may have encouraged the FBI to look into certain activities, And I may have made some very public donations to law enforcement charities. And I may have had a conversation with every major player in the city where I explained in detail what would happen if anyone ever came after you or Hope again. That's very you. I'm protective. He kissed Hope's forehead, then Elena's. But this is it. I'm done. Really, truly done. No more empire, no more underworld, just us, just our family. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Adrian looked at her directly. I almost lost everything this week. You, Hope, the life we've built. And I realize that none of the power or money or respect matters if I don't have you two. So I'm choosing you, both of you, over everything else. Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks. I love you. I love you too, more than I thought I could love anyone. They stood there in the nursery, the three of them together, and Elena felt something she'd been searching for her entire life. Home. 6 months later, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, Adrian took Elena back to Marcello's one more time. They'd left Hope with Jenna for the evening, promising to be back before bedtime. Why the fancy dinner? Elena asked as they walked through the doors. It's not our anniversary. Can a man take his wife to dinner without an occasion? You could, but you usually have a reason. Adrian smiled and led her to their usual table, the same one where she'd fallen into his lap almost 2 years ago. But instead of sitting down, he pulled her to the center of the room. This is where it started, he said, taking both her hands. You fell. I caught you. And somehow that moment changed everything. Adrian, what are you? I was lost before you, broken, going through the motions of a life I didn't even want. And then you crashed into me, and suddenly I had a reason to be better, to try harder, to believe I could be more than what my father made me. He pulled her closer. You saved my life, Elena. In every way a person can be saved. You saved mine too. Good. Then we're even. Adrian kissed her softly. I love you. I love our daughter. I love the life we've built together. And I wanted to come back here, to where it all began, to tell you that I'd do it all again, every moment, every choice, every fall. Elena was crying now, happy tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. Me too. I'd choose you 1,000 times over. They danced right there in the middle of Marcello's, with the other diners watching and the staff pretending not to notice. And when the music ended and they finally sat down to eat, Elena looked at the man across from her husband, her partner, her everything, and marveled at how a single moment of clumsiness had led to this. She'd fallen into the wrong place, crashed into a dangerous stranger, made every impulsive decision her rational brain had screamed against. And somehow, impossibly, it had led her exactly where she belonged. With Adrian. With Hope. With a family and a future and a love that had survived everything the world threw at them. Elena Carter had spent years being invisible, but Adrian Voss had seen her from the very first moment, and he'd never stopped seeing her since. That was worth every risk, every danger, every impossible choice. That was worth everything.